Do you ever wonder why you want to lose weight, but you can't find the motivation to do it? Midlife is full of motivation killers. We have very good reasons often why we should lose weight, but somehow there's a little voice in our head that's really telling us that now is just not the right time or it's not what we need right now. However, that doesn't stop us trying. We end up in this half in, half out situation. We're worrying about food all the time. We're conscious of trying to cut calories, but we go too far and we give in, and then we just eat too much. And we repeat that cycle over and over again. But it feels like we're putting a lot of effort in because we are trying. We're trying really hard, but we keep failing. So that starts to trigger thoughts like, is there a problem with my hormones or my metabolism? Or is it something I'm eating like dairy or wheat that's stopping me from losing weight? We start to think that there is something wrong with us that means whatever we try, it just won't happen for us. But even then, we can't give up. We can't flip out of this dieting mindset because we worry that that's going to mean that we lose complete control over our food and then our weight will start to spiral. This is what the Menopause Motivation Seminar is all about. It's going to help you break that cycle. It's going to help you understand the motivation killers that a lot of women suffer from. We always think it's just us that's experiencing this. And it's really nice when you realize that these are very common themes that many women experience. And I'm going to tell you during that seminar what actually works now for women, what to eat, how to exercise. There's some nice things about how about rest and relaxation as well. Things that will really make a difference if you're able to stick to a plan. But quite often we focus on the food and the recipes, and what we forget to do is we focus on the things that we need to do to keep our motivation high so that we can stick to the plan. Or if we fail, we get back on really quickly. So, what becomes really important now, if you want to create change, is to do everything you can to stay motivated, to trust the process, to know that it's going to work for you if you keep going. And that's what this is all about. Now, one of the things that we also need to do to keep our motivation high, and I want to start this with you now, is we have to know what is going to change for us when we've done all this hard work, okay? Because changing your diet, building up an exercise schedule does take some effort. It is hard work, not as much as you think, but it takes some effort. And a real problem that I think that we have is that we live in a society where we only equate changing your diet and doing exercise with one payoff, and that's losing weight. But if you go back to what I said right at the beginning of this video, you already feel like you can't get motivated to lose weight. So if we think that's the only payoff from changing our diet and doing exercise, we're setting ourselves up for failure. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to know what's on the other side of actually losing weight, because many of us, we don't know what's on the other side. We don't know what it feels like when we lose that weight that's been bothering us for so long and experience what life feels like when it's done. And I have very recently achieved a goal of losing 30 pounds worth of menopause weight. And it's probably the first time that I ever achieved something like that in my adult life. And on that day when I stood on the scale and I looked down and I saw that I'd hit my goal, I thought, I didn't jump for joy. I just thought, thank God for that. It was a long time coming. And it was quite a fleeting feeling. It was nice to reach the end of a process, but it wasn't actually that big a deal. What was a bigger deal was something that started to sink in afterwards. And that was how proud I suddenly felt that I had achieved something really hard. And what I was proud of, it wasn't a number on the scale. It wasn't even really what I saw when I looked in the mirror. I was really proud that for 10 months I'd been really consistent. I'd prioritized myself. I'd kept going when I wanted to give up. I'd gone through phases where I felt like I was losing and struggling with cravings and life was too stressful, but I'd carried on. I'd found something inside me to keep going. And that was what made me feel so strong and powerful and proud of myself because I thought to myself, if I can put that much effort into something for so long, well, I could put that effort into achieving anything else I want. And then that made me think, so what do I want? What's next? Because when you finally conquer your food demons and stop using food to manage emotions, worrying about social occasions, feeling guilty every time you slip up and lose control, or constantly thinking about food all the time, when you've achieved that big goal and you've changed so much in your relationship with food, suddenly you get your brain back. So all those thoughts that you've been having over and over and over again for years have gone. And that's quite something. And that's where the real magic happens. So that's something else that is hugely powerful when you go through that process, when you find that motivation to keep you going. And another really interesting part of this process is to achieve it, you have to put yourself first. That is hard. That is very hard for midlife women who have spent years, decades focusing on their career, their home, their families. And we've really got squeezed out of our own lives. But you can't make that happen unless you bump yourself up to the top of the priority list and start doing things for yourself. And that is an incredibly rewarding part of the process because you actually start to create a new relationship with yourself because you start to reconnect with what you want. You start to do things, stop procrastinating, and start to do stuff that makes it happen. And then you start to feel really important again, that you're important, not just everyone else. That is a game changer. And then you realize there's a different way of thinking about your life. It puts you back in the driving seat of your life. And I really think that's where we all need to be once we get to this point in our lives because we've done enough for everybody else. It's our turn now. We have got the time, the energy, the freedom to go and create a new life for ourselves and to make the next phase of our life amazing and centered around us for a change. And I've seen this happen over and over and over with my clients. And I can't tell you, it is the most magical transformation. And I don't know why we don't talk about this more. We just talk about losing weight. But truthfully, the transformation in you and how you feel about yourself and what you can achieve is massive. And my most favorite word to use to describe this is feeling capable again. And I think of that word as confidence in action. We feel like we're confident, but we know how to use that confidence. We're not sat there thinking, we're out in the big wide world doing, not stuck going around in circles, feeling trapped, feeling stuck, not knowing what to do with our lives. We step out of that and start doing things for ourselves again. And that's what happens when you rediscover the motivation to make these important lifestyle changes for yourself that you've just not been able to make happen so far because you're too bogged down by these invisible motivation killers that it's possible to break free from. And that is what the Menopause Motivation Seminar is all about. I really hope to see you there and start this next phase of your journey together. All right, bye for now.